Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council's Committee of the Whole to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Mackey,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Milawambwe,
Here.
Councilmember Emig,
Present.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Here.
Councilmember Black,
Here.
Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Bray.
Here.
Thank you very much. At this point, do we have any, we did have public comments that were emailed to us. Anyone on the line, Madam Clerk?
Actually,
Oh, excuse me.
Mayor,
I'm
we'll
sorry.
start
I
with.
jumped over. That's right.
There we go.
I'm sorry, Tim. Yeah, you go first. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Under my COVID comments for tonight, I just wanted to share a couple of things. The partial return to work, again, we had about 250 employees that we sent home mid-March to work from home. June 1st marked a change in that where we had up to 50% of the employees that sent home return to work. And that was based on a department director's plan for each individual department. City facilities are open by appointment, and we have been open from day one at the arena ticket window and have expanded that offering on June 1st when we thought we would start seeing increased foot traffic entering this new phase. Starting this week, we're going to begin administrative court again. Not surprisingly, we've really have a stacked docket over the past couple of months of not being able to do this. So it will be at City Hall, but entry is going to be at the direction of legal staff, letting people in no more than 10 at a time. Those attending administrative court will be escorted into the council chambers. Another thing that I wanted to share was we saw the outdoor dining in the downtown and the entire community. But in the downtown, we kind of seize an opportunity to expand the dining opportunity by trying out some lane closures in different areas around downtown. That plan was completed. We'll get that to council tomorrow. And we plan on beginning construction later this week in the next couple of days so that that opportunity is in place prior to Father's Day weekend, which is coming up. And then also wanted to share that we've reached out to a gardening group to assist in plantings that will likely or hopefully begin next week, along with our city staff doing some of that, so that it's not just the Jersey barriers, so we've got something that has some pop to it and some color. And it's an opportunity again during this phase 3 of COVID-19. So, and then some good news, and Scott Rathbun will expand on this during the council meeting on the 22nd for the finance director's report. But there's a combination of things that have occurred during COVID. We had pretty conservative projections on what our losses would be and what revenues would look like amidst COVID-19. A combination of less spending during this time, more so in seasonal hires and stuff like that, versus foregoing equipment purchases and foregoing different projects. We've also ended the FY20 year better than what we even projected, even though there was a month and a half of that during COVID. And revenues, at least up to this point, have been, I don't want to say strong, but they have definitely been better than what we projected. And we think that we're going to hit about $1 million better than what we were projecting for the COVID loss of revenue. So that was good news. That's all I've got, Mayor and Council, under COVID comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gleason. Appreciate all you do. At this point, then, I'm going to turn to Madam Clerk. And do we have anyone on the line for public comment?
We do, Mayor. John Reed. Let me get him going here.
Okay.
John, are you there?
I am here. How is everybody this evening?
Okay, thank you. You got the floor. For
All right. 3 minutes. I'm going to break this into 3 segments. One, Mr. Mayor, I do appreciate your personal response to the looters that seemed to be mostly local at Kohl's a couple weeks ago. Glad you weren't seriously injured. The only question I would have, I'd be wondering how many of those looters were actually present at some of the protests that were scheduled by some of our council members that were present. That's my first part. The second part is I just read from Chuck Erickson that in McLean County, only 14 people are hospitalized due to COVID-19. Majority have recovered. Why exactly are we holding this up? Is it because your fealty to Governor Pritzker and his lackadaisical response to this? I mean, because everybody knows he's going off Chicago, not downstate. He surely opened this town up. It's really sad that Chuck Erickson, a McLean County board member, has more foresight than the Bloomington City Council and the normal town council, not to mention other small communities. And thirdly, let's get to the best part. I'll keep this short and sweet. I had breakfast this morning at Parkview Inn. I want to thank Jen Carrillo's new Facebook page, Voices of Justice, air quotes involved, for showing me where I should go for breakfast. Tomorrow I'm going to Roy Rapp's, get a blue line put on my back window. I really think, Jen, as a city council member, stuff like that should be verboten. That means forbidden, in case you don't know German. And you should probably think about resigning from the council if that's how you want to play it. And you can probably take your lackey, Jeff Crable, with you when you go. No place for that kind of divisiveness in the city of Bloomington at all. That's all I've got, Mayor. Y'all have a good evening.
Hey, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else?
There's nobody else that called in to speak, but we did have emailed public comments that I shared with council earlier today. Those were sent out by Stephen Haas.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to move to our consent agenda, and the consent agenda involves minutes, because that's the only thing we would act on in a committee of the whole, of course. And there are minutes from April 20th, April 22nd, special session, and then the minutes of the April 27th regular city council meeting. These are all minutes. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'm not sure if you can see hands or not this evening, but we do have Councilmember Crable and Councilmember Carrillo with their hands up.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Councilmember, well, I've got them in this order: Crable and then Carrillo.
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. I'd like to pull consent agenda item 5A.
5A. Okay. Councilmember Carrillo.
I was just going to make the motion that we approve it as presented.
Okay. So how about if I respectfully ask you to amend your motion to say that we would like to approve items 5B and C? Since.
Oh, yes, exactly. That's what I meant.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Madam Clerk, can you see it? I'm looking for hands.
Yep, it looks
We
like
got
you have
Donna.
Councilmember
Okay.
Donna Boland.
Okay. Second by Councilmember Emig. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll again? This is
Oh, okay.
approving 5B and C, but not A, which was
Gotcha.
pulled.
Yep. Councilmember Matthey.
Yes.
Councilmember Boland.
Yes.
Councilmember Millawambwe.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Painter.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Motion carried, no nays to announce. Madam Clerk, I'm going to turn it to Councilmember Crable, who pulled item 5A.
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to move to amend the minutes for April 20th And I refer to page 2 of those minutes and to my comment, and I'll read the comment as it exists and what I would like to amend it to. So currently it reads, Councilmember Crable asked how covered limits were determined and whether reduced limits could be considered. Mr. Nugent responded and listed the multiple factors and variables that were considered when making coverage limit suggestions. Councilmember Crable and Mr. Nugent discussed workers' compensation, retentions, business interruption, insurance, and property coverage. What I would like to add to that would be Mr. Crable asked if the city's coverage would apply to any COVID-19 impacts. While Mr. Nugent questioned whether coverage would apply, he did say that he has directed the city's third-party administrator to make a business interruption claim with the city's property insurer due to FEMA requirements. I believe that is an accurate summary based on my review of the YouTube meeting. And I think it's, even though this is a summary in the minutes, I think it does reflect an important point with regard to coverage the city may have for COVID-19 impacts.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
Yes.
That would be to amend the minutes under 5A. Is there a second to that motion?
Looks like Councilmember Bray has her hand up and Carrillo.
Okay, so we got to so say second by Councilmember Bray. And any further discussion on this?
There are no hands up.
No hands up. Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please call the roll then?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Madam Clerk, no nays to announce. We move right along then to our presentation, discussion, and direction on future agenda topics. And the first one under 6A is discussion and direction on an aldermanic initiative proposal to bring the Downtown Task Force report back to the council for acceptance as requested by Councilmember Jamie Matthey. And at this point, again, there's no recommended motion, but we do have, we've allotted about 5 minutes for Councilmember Matthey to clarify, and then approximately a 20-minute council discussion. So Jamie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. I thought we already did this part where we were going to talk about this, and I guess I didn't know if we were going to get a presentation from staff on the report that we were sent out or not to have something to talk about. I mean, I thought I already gave the justification of why this was going to come back to a regular meeting last month.
Okay.
So maybe I didn't understand what we were doing tonight.
If I can maybe turn to Mr. Gleason for a brief clarity. Tim, can you hear us?
I think Mayor and Council, the appropriate next step at the Committee of the Whole for a council initiative, there'll be a quick thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe some comment to see if this makes it to the next step. The next step is tonight, where council discusses in greater detail what Jamie, you had in mind with this specific council initiative. Now, what we did, and even in my council update, I shared with everyone that there was no staff presentation. And in fact, we've really not prepared for anything, but I do have Melissa Hahn that's on the line that can take some questions. We shared the Downtown Task Force final report that was from the fall of 2017. And then also we did provide what we felt were some of the accomplishments that could be tied to the Downtown Task Force that have occurred over the last couple of years.
Okay, I apologize. I missed the no staff report part of the your email, Tim. Sorry about that. So okay, then yeah, why do I want to bring this back? And the big part about this is I think that there was a lot of really good ideas that were in this report that were to use the colloquialism, the baby was thrown out with the bathwater when some of the portions of the downtown task force report were bogged down in controversy, the way that the entire process went through. There's still a lot of really good ideas in there. And initially, when Tim was hired, he said, hey, there's some good ideas in here, and we're just going to start working on some of these things and knocking out some low-hanging fruit as we go along. And that has happened in a bunch of areas, and the staff has done a really good job. There's stuff like partnering with McLean County at the museum and at the Law and Justice Center that have gone well, and Front Street was remade, and we made some really good progress at Front Street. So some of the portions of this have gone well. However, we've had a couple of misses that had happened as well. One of the things that was in the report that was something that was discussed a lot during our meetings was a lot to do with beautification. And one of those ideas was running electrical conduit to all of the tree wells for Christmas lights and things of that nature, festivals, for places for power to be used during downtown events. And, of course, all these ideas, when we talk about planning, we're not saying we're going to go out and do them today. We're saying that we're going to go out and do them at the next available opportunity while we are already working in the area. Last year, we, of course, repaved Main Street, and that would have been the perfect time to, while Main Street was dug up, to put conduit in. That didn't happen. It was talked about ahead of time. There was, I don't know why it didn't happen, but when I asked the question after the fact, why, hey, this was in the downtown report, why didn't we look at putting electrical conduit in for future things like lighting? But we also talked about for future things like places for electric vehicles to plug in as well. And the response that I got was, City Council never approved the downtown task force, therefore we didn't think that was important to the council. So I'm bringing this back because there's still pieces inside of this report that are important that we look at and talk about. They don't have to be discussed, or they don't have to be automatically done the way it is in the plan. However, I would like them to see them to become staff discussion points, so that if we're going to do something with other streets, then we look at what does it cost to run electrical conduit. If we're going to restripe the streets, then we look at what does the downtown task force say. If we're going to tear up sidewalks in an area for infrastructure repairs, what does the streetscaping plan in the task force, what does the streetscaping plan look like, and how do we rebuild things when we're tearing them up anyway? So that's the high level concept of why I wanted to bring this back is I want staff to have direction that when it's time to do things, here are some guidelines, and then I would like them to bring it back to us with their best ideas of how to move forward, as opposed to the assumption that it wasn't important to us and therefore the status quo is fine.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jamie. Appreciate that. Council members, anybody? Councilmember Carrillo.
Yeah, I guess I just want to go back because Jamie, I was also under the impression that we were going to get a staff presentation. So I just want to clarify whether that's something that is going to be happening in the future and this just wasn't the meeting, or whether that's not happening at all. Because, I appreciate the summaries that we have gotten, but think it would be a good idea for the public to have access to the things that were a part of the report that we have done, to the things that we think are low-hanging fruit that we think we can do in the near future, and then to the things that aren't, that we aren't doing, and that are. I feel like that's the nuance that I would like to, the nuanced conversation that I'd like to try to have before we just move to adopt it. So maybe I was confused too. So Tim, can you clarify for us whether that's coming or whether we're deciding not to go with that?
Actually, what I'm doing at the second step of the council initiative, which is what council's approved, is we're just sitting back today. We're not going to not comment if there's a quick question that we can respond to. which is why Melissa's on the line, also Deputy City Manager Tyus. But if the outcome of this meeting is that there is a formal request of staff to present what we've accomplished, for us to walk through the downtown task force final report and break it down, that's exactly the direction out of this meeting that we'll receive. The
Got it.
downtown task force final report is also on the website for the public, for the public to see as well.
Sure, that's exactly, I guess, the direction I'm giving, at least just speaking for myself. I think it would be super helpful, not necessarily to go through each part of the plan, because you're right, it is online and folks who are interested in it have looked at it, but more the status updates of, putting things in different buckets of things we've already done, things like low-hanging fruits that we can see happen in the next couple of months, year, so on. That would be super helpful to me.
Okay. Other comments? Let's see, Councilmember Craybill.
Thanks, Mayor. Because Melissa's on the line, I don't know if it'd be appropriate for her to talk a little bit about the memorandum she prepared with regard to some of the things that have been done, and whether she believes that kind of going through the downtown task force force recommendations would be something that would be something that would be worth doing versus maybe another avenue.
Thanks. Tim, did you want to start, or we turn it over to Melissa?
Go straight to Melissa.
Melissa?
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Great. Thank
All
you.
right, I was trying to get unmuted. Yeah, so I mean, we can definitely, if it's helpful for everyone, for us to go through and review what we've done in relation to, each part or recommendation of the downtown task force final report, be more than happy to do that. Was just trying to, in what I sent, just provide a brief summary of what we've been able to do so far. The department, we've been around for a little over a year now. So, there's a lot of things that we have been able to do. There are things that we're currently working on, and a lot of things we were really excited about that got put on hold, unfortunately, due to COVID-19. So, more than happy to walk through and present those items individually if that will be helpful.
Jeff, does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Just to clarify, the process that the city council put together to have items placed on the agenda through aldermanic requests was supposed to start out with, is there support to even talk about something? So that's kind of where we are here. So staff didn't necessarily have any direction other than that council wanted to talk about this. And I think they, as Mr. Gleason did, sent out the task force report to kind of get us all up to speed. Some of the council members, of course, were on the council at the time, some were not. And so that's kind of where we are at this point, just to clarify. Let's see, Council Member Milawambwe and then Bolin.
Oh, sorry, I have to unmute myself here. At the risk of repeating what everyone has said already, I do remember last time I was, amongst those, and actually it was my suggestion to put it on the committee of the whole, just so we could kind of understand where we are, because the staff has been doing a number of things, and in the busyness of what they do and what we do, it's very easy to miss what has already been accomplished. So what I was really looking for is that for us to be on the same page as far as what's been accomplished, and out of the things that have not been accomplished is whether or not we still want to move forward. And from my standpoint, I thought it was kind of premature to put that on a city council meeting agenda, because as you can see, just by the conversation right now, there's still a little bit of, maybe uncertainty as to what do we do, how do we move forward. So I felt like it needed a little bit more time to just kind of figure things out before we put it on the council agenda.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Bolin and then Emig.
Okay. Well, I have several comments that I'd like to make. I really would like to get rid of the whole section of the stimulus or the I can't remember the word that it's called, but the
Catalyst.
project.
Catalyst.
Pardon me? Yeah, catalyst.
Catalyst.
Thank you. Catalyst. I just would like to get rid of all of those because my basic philosophy is incremental development, redevelopment, and Melissa and staff have implemented many of the smaller affordable projects that were in the or are in the plan. One of the things I would like to understand is what actually is the vision or goal for downtown. Is it simply for attracting activities and festivals? Is it, what is it supposed to really look like? Historic? The plan says that it should be viewed as pre-World War II, or is it supposed to be whimsical with multicolor crosswalks? So I would like to have the council sort of direct their conversation to that. And I also am very supportive of having it unified, which means if you look at the signage that's going to come forward, that's kind of a classic semi-Art Deco style, that's historic. I get that. I would like to make sure that the benches and any other amenities that are put in there go along the same style. I really, this is going to be a hard word, but I don't want it to look gauche or gaudy. I would like to stay with the historic features, including the facades. I don't want to be paint police, but I think that the color palette would be important for consistency. I know we have to address all the parking, which includes street and garage parking. What else? Oh yeah, include Connect Transit in this, because if we close off some of the streets, that will have to reroute Connect Transit. And to be honest, I would like to have some nice looking bus stops downtown instead of the butterfly seats that are currently located downtown. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks. Just a slight clarification. Connect Transit is certainly planning on putting a downtown transfer center in at some point. And so.
No, I'm talking about the bus stops.
The regular bus.
I'm talking about the bus stops, because the way they look now are those little multicolored butterfly, I call them butterfly seats. And, I would like to have the bus stops be a little bit more traditional looking.
Gotcha. Okay. Councilmember Emig, Black and Carrillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I would say in a nutshell, the downtown plan, sections 1, 2, and 3. And I agree that at this point, section 4 can be moved off of the proposal or of the original plan. And I think when Alderman Matthey brought it up, that was his intent. It looks like it's primarily about preserving aesthetics, green space, walkability, and some reference to historic structures. I think those details that Alderman Bolin or Alderperson Bolin brought up are really important to consider, but that feels like the next step. Like what needs to happen is passage of sections 1 through 3 and including additional areas of opportunity on page 16. The first thing is to partner with normal and the Illinois Department of Transportation and McLean County. And so we have a lot of those opportunities written into this plan, but then how it happens, the color schemes, the parking, the process, the funding we would be able to move into that space if we passed the plan, because it allows for this kind of conversation and discussion of how it would be implemented. But what's holding us up is that we haven't passed it. So that's how I see where we are today. Thank you.
Councilmember Black, Carrillo, and Crable.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I feel like every time we talk about downtown, I eat a cigarette and I don't even smoke. It seems like a constant political just back and forth. And so, you know, whatever we see, I think is I'm fine with. You know, Jamie in his email today did a really great job of summarizing a lot of the key components. And I would argue, at least from what I've seen, that the problem with downtown really isn't financial, it's political. And at some point in time, we just have to take a vote. Not all of us are going to be on board, but we're going to have to do our best because there are so many divergent views of opinions. So, you know, maybe I say that knowing full well I could be in a 4 and a 5-4 decision. But, you know, I think the inaction and the policy choices is something that we have to confront, because I can just say that, you know, what was downtown this weekend for the farmers market, well attended, seen a lot of folks out having meals at, of course, socially distanced and following the rules at the various restaurants there. And people have just been raving about, we want to see more of that. We want to see more people out engaged in the community and those types of things. So I really view this as a way to facilitate that. You know, I'm willing to try anything. I remember the hot issue a couple of years ago was closing down Jefferson Street. You know, I still remain in favor of that. I don't know if that would have the traction, but I guess my direction to staff would be, you know, throw something out there in alignment with the downtown task force or whatever report we want to reference. I think there's been 2,000 made in the last 10 years. Take your pick. Let's see a policy and vote on it, and you take it from there.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Carrillo, and then Crable and Matthew.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement with what Alderman Black just shared. I think people are feeling like we sometimes let perfect be the enemy of good. And we've just, you know, we get stuck in a holding pattern, waiting for everybody to sign off. I think folks just want to see us take action downtown. And even if we don't get it perfect, I think folks would rather see us move than spend another several years like coming up with another report that maybe gets shelved or maybe it gets done. So so I think as a first step, it makes sense to adopt the plan. But I also don't want us to think like that's sort of our one and done for downtown for this moment. I would accept that with the caveat that we're beginning a new process, because that report is also a little bit dated. And I've gotten very similar feedback to Scott when I've been downtown these past couple of weeks. People are like, we love this. Like, we love how walkable it is. We love how bikeable it is. This is what we should have been doing all along. Like, we don't want this to go away. So it feels like we have a lot of really good opportunities to make some permanent changes now that our like downtown life has already been disrupted by something outside of our control. So like, I do think we have an opportunity that doesn't last forever. And so yeah, we should move forward on this, but we should also just like take a stab at proposing something and landing an update to the plan that maybe we could approve with the past report.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Crable, Matthew, and Painter.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm not going to speak for Jamie, but I think he was kind of looking for some things that wouldn't be too controversial to kind of run through and not necessarily talk about everything globally. And I certainly agree with that. I also agree with what Donna has talked about with regard to what do we envision our downtown Bloomington to be. And I don't think we have a clear vision right now. And, you know, a lot of people compare us to Normal and the vision that they had 20 years ago. Not everybody agrees with that vision then or now, but it's a vision that they put forward. And they pretty much lived up to that vision in deciding what to do, what projects to approve and not to approve. And I'm not saying we have Normal's plan, but we need to have a plan. And that's something I think a lot of people have been asking, for a long time. And it's hard to make. What you do is you have these ad hoc decisions being made, right? With regard to how we repave Main Street and what kind of utilities and things we have, because there's not a grand plan. And so I think until we get that grand plan, things are going to kind of seem, ad hoc and it's going to be more political. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Matthey and then Councilmember Painter.
Thanks, Mayor. So a couple of thoughts going through my head. One, to address what Mboka said is, and why I was a little caught off guard starting was, last month I submitted 3 alderman initiatives, and we, all 3 of them were voted to move forward to the next step, which is, I thought this was the next step, and it feels a little bit like we're re-jurying what we voted on last month in some ways. We're having a greater discussion, and I appreciate that. But I realized the error that I had there. So, and I'm great talking about it here, and I'm great talking about it with all of you individually, whatever the best way to do that is. To go to what Donna said, was what is our vision of downtown, and what is downtown? And to me, it boils down into a couple things. And downtown has become, for many people, a destination location, right? And that's really what the vision for downtown is. If we look at the state of Illinois and state of Illinois tourism, there are 3 driving factors for the state: Chicago, Abraham Lincoln, and Route 66. And actually, the order is number 1. Last I heard, number 1 was Route 66, 2 was Chicago, 3 was Abraham Lincoln. We have 2 of those 3 things in Bloomington. We have constant visitors coming through, and the numbers visiting the museum, the Route 66 Visitor Center, are growing. A lot of those people come to my store, and I see them as well. So not only do we're becoming a local destination for our residents, for the outdoor dining. We have some of the best restaurants in all of Bloomington normal community right in downtown. So we're becoming a restaurant destination, we're becoming a nightlife destination, and where there's many shopping experiences that are destinations at the same time. At the same time, though, is we want to preserve the historic fabric, right? A lot of the historic buildings were lost in the 80s when we had entire blocks of buildings razed. And I think everybody would agree that we don't want to see that happening anymore. We don't want modern architecture kind of invading. So we want to preserve those buildings. So when you ask me what downtown is downtown is that historic destination. We have property owners who are doing their best to restore and create facades that maintain that historic appearance as we go through downtown. And then we've got all the other factors of work, dine, and play, or live, dine, and play down there as well. So I think there's a lot of things that go into downtown, and it's up to this group to drive forward that, yes, downtown is important. The task force job was to distill multiple plans. Like Scott said, we have a lot of plans, and pick out what are the things that were most important, what were the best ideas from those various plans, and bring those forward. And if the next step from here is a presentation from Melissa on the stuff that staff has already gotten done, and then what staff thinks are the next low-hanging fruit, that's awesome. Let's keep that ball rolling and get that presentation and talk about it too. And let's talk amongst ourselves about what things are important to each of us as we go forward. But approving the plan, and if we take out the entire section 4, which is the catalyst plan, and improving everything else, there's still a ton of great ideas in there that staff can go through and say, this one fits when we do this project next. This one fits when we do this project here. And that's where we can have the discussions. We can actually get detailed cost estimates when we're going to do the project. If we do it the old way, it costs A. If we do it the new way, it costs B. We can make educated and informed decisions at that point and move forward from there. So that's where I wanted to go for with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Painter.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in agreement with Jamie, and
everyone who's spoken so far. I do think that we have been paying attention to the report, and I didn't Melissa send out a report saying everything that she has done so far? You know, I read that and I was impressed that we are currently moving forward with the whole plan. But my major question is the downtown signage and the wayfinding materials that we have ordered. We spent a lot of time picking that out, or the committee did, and it was very expensive. Now where are they? Can we get them put up? I mean, what's the holdup with that?
We were waiting on an IDOT permit, and we actually just secured that in the past couple of weeks.
Awesome.
So it's coming.
Great. And thanks for moving forward with this. I think you've all done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Painter. I think what we certainly have is consensus. Mr. Gleason, do you think you have what you need for the next step? And maybe perhaps even just some greater clarity in terms of what has been done? Maybe go back to what Melissa had sent out to us. What do you think, Tim?
That really was the game plan as I understood it. And actually Alderman Milwambwe explained it the way that I understood it. We provided some information to council that we felt would be appropriate for tonight, but we plan a presentation at the committee of the whole next week.
All right. Anything else? Okay. We'll move right along then to the next item. And this is discussion and direction on aldermanic initiative to extend the waiver of late fees and penalties for the city's food and beverage taxes requested by Councilmember Matthey. Again, this is not a motion. We did have in our quick 5-minute poll of 10 people support to go forward. And Councilmember Matthey, if you've got about 5 minutes, and then see what kind of council discussion we may or may not have after that.
Sure, I won't need 5 minutes. So I put this on there. We, as part of our emergency responses, we have prorated gambling fees, we have prorated liquor licenses, and we have waived late fees for anybody who pays their some of the various fees and taxes that we receive in the city, particularly food and beverage taxes from restaurants and hotels. We have currently waived those late fees as long as people are paid up and current within 30 days of Governor Pritzker ending the emergency declaration. And my proposal is that I think that there are restaurants and hotels that are going to need longer than 30 days to get caught up and be current. And I wanted to waive the late fees on those if it took longer. Last meeting, we talked about looking at what the impacts would be if we agreed to waive fees, only late fees and late charges, not the actual taxes themselves. But if we agreed to waive those late fees and charges for 90 days or for 6 months.
Okay. At this point, let's see. Anybody want to weigh in? Or let's see. Councilmember Boland.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to say is that I guess it should be fair across the board. All the different groups that have had their the amendments where they have deferred late fees should be included, not just restaurants or whatever. It should be all the businesses that have been granted this special privilege should be included. Is that part of Jamie's initiative, or is it just one section?
Jamie, did you want to respond?
I put in there with food and beverage taxes as a specific tax that we could waive late fees on. If there are other ones that are pertinent, I'm happy absolutely to include those. I'm not sure what they might be. a lot of the other fees and stuff that we collect are single instance, like building permits and stuff like that, that you pay for it when you need it. So whatever, if there's other ongoing fees that are monthly fees that people are paying, and there's late fees attached to them if you're late getting those to the city, I'm happy to include those too. I just don't know exactly which ones those might be.
Okay, well, that's what I was concerned about.
Okay.
Fair.
Okay. Councilmember Black.
Thank you, and thanks, Jamie. I think we've done this a couple times now, and I think we should continue it as long as the pandemic goes on. Tim, at the beginning, you mentioned in your comments around administrative court reopening, and I hope that as we start going through that process, that we can be as lenient with those folks as we have been with business owners in terms of late fees and such. You may not have heard me. So, Tim, did you hear anything I said?
Yes, I did, actually.
good.
I was
Okay.
multitasking.
Yes, I'm sorry. I saw you took the earphone out. All good.
Okay. All right. So let's see, Councilmember Black, I've got you on. Is there, it sounds like there's no one that's up in opposition to us moving forward with some version of this. I didn't hear any. Councilmember Carrillo and then Miller.
Oh, I was just offering a motion or a second.
Oh, there's no action. We don't take action at committee of the whole except for minutes. You understand what I'm saying? If you know.
Sorry, my audio is cutting in and out.
So
Oh, got it. Yeah, no, just also expressing support for this.
Okay, sounds good. Councilmember Milawambwe. Mboka?
Sorry, thank you. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'm in support of it, but it sounds like just from the conversation, we might be expanding the number of businesses it applies to, right? And so what I'd like to understand, just kind of how seeing how the staff put together some sort of a financial impact. I think it'd be good for us to also have that. If we were to expand it to other types of businesses, then it would be good for us to have the financial impact as well.
Well, that might be very difficult, given that if people pay their stuff on time, it's not an issue, and we don't know how many people won't pay their stuff on time. So we know we're going to get the fees. We're just waiving late fees. I mean, I don't know, Mr. Kingston, is there a way that you can figure out who's not going to pay?
Hey, there's a lot of background noise. Is that just me or other people?
No, I'm hearing it too, Jen. Oh, it's Mboka's fault. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Tim, I'm sorry.
What I was going to share is the city currently is waiving interest fees and penalties for food and beverage tax as long as it is paid within 30 days after the governor's emergency declaration ends. The ordinance specifically applies to food and beverage tax, utilities, parking tickets, and ordinance violations. By executive orders, this was extended to some amusement taxes and hotel motel taxes. So that's what we've currently done under the emergency order. In the city manager update, I took part of Finance Director Scott Rathbun's, just taking a stab at this council initiative. And actually, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you if you've got a few comments, and actually don't mind if you share what the staff recommendation might be for establishing a period beyond phase 4 once we get there.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just comment on this having the data available. I think you may have noticed in the financial impact of the 273 food and we just focused on food and beverage. On the 273 food and beverage filers from January, we had 37 non-filers for April. So those non-filers could fall into 3 buckets from where I'm sitting. The filers could have ceased doing business. They could have done no business, and they're under the impression that since they've done no business, they don't have to file a return. Or they may have been doing business, but they're under the impression they don't have to file a return because there are no penalties being assessed. So due to the non-filing situation, we can't really extrapolate what effect the extension might have at this point. We're looking at sending out a notice to the non-filers, clarifying the ordinance in that penalties will be suspended if filing stays intact. And we're going to give them a certain amount of time, the filers, to bring their filings current. And then from that point on, we'll have better visibility on what an extension may mean. Now, that doesn't really help us right now. So one of the things that I'm concerned with, Jeff Jurgens is concerned with as well, and it was in the memo, is related to the phase 5 and how long that can go on, and tagging this decision onto that. So one thing that we're looking at or discussing is if we extend the time frame for the penalty suspension, adjusting the linkage to when we go into phase 4. So potentially doing, maybe upping it from 30 days to 90 days. But as I mentioned, linking that to phase 4, which is going to be more definitive, as opposed to a phase 5, which could go on indefinitely and delay taxes, way out into calendar year 21, even fiscal year 22.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think at this point, Mr. Gleason, do you have the information you think that you need to go to the next phase? Tim?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I do, Mayor, but I'd like to take this opportunity. Scott, do you need more clarity as we take this to the next step?
Well, I'm thinking that we might be able to come back to council with maybe 2 or 3 options related to our concerns related to the phase 5, and we'll do some estimations. We'll try to reach out to some of the non-filers directly and get some more indication as to the statistics behind the data behind that non-filing, whether or not it's really related to the penalty extension, or if it's just merely the impact of the quarantine on business. I mean, part of the statistics we do have is that of the 4, we had 4 taxpayers that filed and did not pay. That was $4,000. So, of our typical $350,000 monthly, we had 181 in April in revenue. It's not a real material number, but what we don't know is, as I mentioned earlier, what percentage of the non-filers had business and are delaying their tax payments because of its suspension on penalties. So we'll gather some more information on that, and then maybe come back to council, I think, with 2 or 3 options related to that.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Councilmember Matthew, you want to add something else?
I was just going to say that if we wanted to talk about strictly tying the 90 days or the 6 months to phase 4, I'd be happy to entertain that idea as well. So if that's what staff comes back and recommends, then let's have that conversation.
Sounds good. Okay, we're good then. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Mr. Gleason for city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll make this real quick, but I'm going to start with a correction. When we were talking about the first council initiative, I was talking about a staff presentation at the next committee of the whole. It's next week at the next council meeting. We'll do a staff presentation. And while this truly was the next step in the process, I appreciate the conversation. I came into this job July of 18. That task force final report, like I said, fall of 2017, and was told that it was extremely controversial. So walking through this and getting some clarity is very much appreciated on my part. So thank you, Alderman Matthey, for that. And then that gives us as staff a roadmap to work with. There's been so much that falls into the category of the low-hanging fruit. Low cost, no cost, and that's exactly what we have implemented over the last couple of years, but very much appreciate this as a next step. Bulk pickup for the city will start Monday, July 6th. That's just a reminder to everyone. Again, we pushed that back a couple of months because of COVID-19. Also, would be remiss if I didn't mention Census 2020. We continue to stack up very well to other counties throughout the state of Illinois, and we still have time to complete that. So word of mouth from all of us that are on this right now and those that are watching definitely helps. And then I think it was Alderman Black commented that the farmers market was the first time that it was back open to the public with a social distancing component, was very successful. And that's the way that it'll be going forward. So with that, Mayor, Council, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gleason. Is there a motion then to adjourn? Councilmember Carrillo? Ed,
So moved. Second.
So moved.
by our seconder in chief, Councilmember Milawamwe, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.